The Torino mansion rose like a modern palace in the hills of Beverly Hills, Los Angeles, with panoramic views of the entire city stretching to the Pacific Ocean. It was a warm October night in 2023, and the gentle desert breeze carried the scent of jasmine from the perfectly manicured gardens, mixed with the distant smell of sea salt from Malibu. The city lights twinkled like diamonds scattered on black velvet, creating a Hollywood-worthy backdrop for what the local press had already dubbed the Ball of the Century. Sofia Martinez nervously adjusted her white apron over her black uniform as she observed the final preparations for Los Angeles' most exclusive event. At 24, she had learned to move silently through the mansion's marble corridors, almost like a ghost who tended to every detail without ever being truly seen by important guests. Her dark brown eyes reflected the light from the enormous baccarat crystal chandeliers as she checked for the 10th time whether the Cristal champagne glasses were perfectly aligned. The 15,000 square meter mansion had been transformed into a fairy tale setting. The main hall, with its 500 square meters, had its retractable glass ceiling open to reveal the Los Angeles stars, while 20 round tables had been arranged around a Carrara marble dance floor imported directly from Italy. Each table was decorated with arrangements of white orchids and red roses, the Torino family colors, in Waterford crystal vases that cost more than Sofia earned in a year. "Sofia, the flowers on the main table are crooked," shouted Mrs. Benedetti, the 60-year-old Italian housekeeper who commanded the 30-person staff with an iron fist. Her voice echoed through the hall, competing with the sound of Los Angeles Philharmonic musicians testing their instruments on the improvised stage. Sofia ran to the head table, where arrangements of red roses and white orchids decorated the center. Her delicate hands, calloused from the hard work of cleaning a mansion the size of a hotel, carefully adjusted each flower. She knew Vincent liked perfection in every detail, and tonight couldn't have any errors, not when 100 of Los Angeles' most powerful women would be competing for his attention. "Better now, Mrs. Benedetti?" Sofia asked with her soft Mexican accent, which she tried to disguise when speaking English. She had grown up in Tijuana before crossing the border in search of a better life, and even after 2 years in Los Angeles, she still felt like a stranger in this world of excessive luxury. The housekeeper examined the arrangement with critical eyes, adjusting her designer glasses. "It's fine. Now go check if the canapes are ready in the kitchen. And remember, today you stay in the background. I don't want to see you circulating among the guests. These women are like sharks and you don't want to attract their attention." Sofia nodded, accustomed to these instructions. On nights like this, when Los Angeles' elite gathered at the Torino mansion, Hollywood actresses, entertainment mogul wives, tech fortune heiresses, she became practically invisible. It was better that way, less complicated, less dangerous. As she walked through the corridors toward the kitchen, Sofia couldn't help but admire the mansion's transformation. The walls were decorated with contemporary artworks valued in the millions of dollars, an original Picasso here, a Monet there, and the Italian marble floor gleamed under the light of crystal chandeliers specially imported from Venice. Century-old Persian rugs covered strategic areas, muffling the sound of Louboutin heels that would soon echo through the corridors. The view from the panoramic windows was breathtaking. Los Angeles stretched infinitely below, with Hollywood Boulevard lights twinkling in the distance, and the iconic Hollywood sign barely visible in the hills. To the right, she could see the lights of Santa Monica and the darkness of the ocean beyond. It was a billion-dollar view, and Vincent Torino owned one of the best in the city. In the 200-square-meter gourmet kitchen, a team of 15 chefs worked frantically under the supervision of renowned French chef Pierre Dubois, who had flown specially from Paris for the occasion. The aroma of black truffle, beluga caviar, and Dom Perignon champagne hung in the air, mixing with the rhythmic sound of knives cutting fresh ingredients that had been flown in from around the world that morning. "Sophia, ma chérie," called Chef Dubois with his heavy French accent, wiping sweat from his forehead with a white cloth. "I need you to take these trays to the hall, but be careful. They're foie gras canapes with edible gold and Olma's caviar. Each one costs more than your weekly salary. Sophia carefully picked up the solid silver trays, observing the small canapes that looked like miniature works of art. Each was decorated with a thin 24-karat gold leaf and crowned with Iranian caviar that cost 25,000 per kilo. It was hard to believe that people would pay 10 dirham for a ticket to attend an event where such expensive food was served as an appetizer. Returning to the main hall, Sophia almost collided with Tony Benedetti, Mrs. Benedetti's son, and Vincent's head of security. Tony was a robust 35-year-old man with facial scars that told stories he never shared. His icy blue eyes examined her from head to toe, and she noticed the discreet pistol under his Armani tuxedo. "Watch it, girl," he muttered, blocking her path with his imposing body. "Today there will be a lot of important people here. Actresses, producers, wives of Disney and Netflix CEOs. People who don't like distractions." Sophia lowered her eyes, feeling the weight of the veiled threat. "I understand, Mr. Benedetti. I'll stay in the kitchen all night." "You'd better." Tony stepped aside, but not before adding, "And Sophia, the boss is nervous today, more than usual. So don't do anything that might irritate him. You know how he gets when he's under pressure." As Sophia arranged the canapes on the tables, she wondered why Vincent would be nervous. In the 2 years she'd worked at the mansion, she had learned to read his moods. When he was stressed about business, which she suspected wasn't completely legal, his jaw would tense and he'd pace through the house like a caged lion. When he was worried about family in Italy, he'd spend hours in the office speaking Italian on the phone, his voice echoing through the corridors. But today was different. Today there was something in his dark eyes that she couldn't decipher, a mixture of anticipation and fear that didn't make sense. Vincent Torino wasn't afraid of anything or anyone in Los Angeles. At 6:30 p.m., the first guests began to arrive. Sophia watched discreetly from the kitchen door as a procession of Bentleys, Ferraris, and Rolls-Royces climbed the mansion's circular driveway. Uniformed drivers opened doors to reveal stunning women in haute couture dresses that cost more than a house in many Los Angeles neighborhoods. The first to enter was Isabella Rossi, a 28-year-old Italian actress who had won an Oscar the previous year. Her blood-red Valentino dress hugged every curve of her sculpted body, and her black hair fell in perfect waves over her bare shoulders. She greeted Mrs. Benedetti with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, clearly calculating her chances of impressing Vincent. Right behind came Scarlett Montgomery, heiress to a Silicon Valley tech empire who had moved to Los Angeles to explore entertainment opportunities. At 26, she was known for her cold blonde beauty and her ability to destroy careers with a single post on her social media, where she had 50 million followers. "Where is our host?" Scarlett asked with a sweet voice that hid venom, her blue eyes scanning the hall like a predator looking for prey. "Mr. Torino will be down shortly," Mrs. Benedetti responded diplomatically. "Please feel free to enjoy the champagne and canapes." Sophia watched fascinated as more and more women arrived. There were Hollywood producers who controlled budgets of hundreds of millions of dollars, wives of music moguls who discovered new talent, heiresses to oil fortunes who financed political campaigns. Each was more dazzling than the last, each clearly determined to be Vincent Torino's chosen one. She recognized some famous faces: pop singer Madison Blake, whose albums sold millions of copies; international model Anastasia Volkov, who graced magazine covers worldwide; tech entrepreneur Priya Sharma, who had sold her startup for $2 billion. They all had something in common. They were powerful, rich, influential, and absolutely stunning. And they were all there for Vincent. Sophia felt a strange pang in her chest, something she didn't want to identify as jealousy. She had no right to feel that. Vincent Torino was her boss, nothing more. The fact that sometimes she caught him looking at her with an expression she couldn't decipher, or that he always asked about her day when he found her in the corridors, didn't mean anything. They lived in completely different worlds. At 7:15 p.m., a murmur swept through the hall. Vincent Torino was descending the main staircase. Sophia felt her breath catch when she saw him. At 35, Vincent was the definition of Italian masculinity. His black Tom Ford tuxedo was perfectly tailored to his athletic body, the result of hours in the mansion's private gym. His black hair was slicked back, revealing a face that could have been sculpted by Michelangelo. Strong jaw, penetrating dark eyes, and an almost imperceptible scar above his left eyebrow that only added to his dangerous charm. But it was his presence that truly impressed. Vincent Torino commanded any room he entered. There was something in his posture, in the way his eyes scanned the hall, in the manner every person present automatically turned toward him, that screamed power and danger in equal measure. "Good evening, ladies." His deep voice echoed through the hall, carried with a slight Italian accent that made hearts race. "Welcome to my home." The hall erupted in polite applause and calculated smiles. Sophia watched as the 100 women positioned themselves strategically, each trying to catch his attention. Isabella Rossi adjusted her dress's neckline. Scarlett Montgomery tossed her hair back in a studied movement. Madison Blake began laughing exaggeratedly at something someone had said, clearly trying to appear relaxed and fun. Vincent descended the last steps and was immediately surrounded by a group of admirers. Sophia saw how he smiled politely, greeted each with European charm, but his eyes seemed to be searching for something, or someone. For a moment their gazes met across the crowded hall. Vincent stopped mid-conversation with a Hollywood producer, his dark eyes fixing on hers. Sophia felt as if the world had stopped. There was something in his gaze, an intensity, a vulnerability she had never seen before. Then Mrs. Benedetti appeared at her side, breaking the moment. "Sophia, what are you doing standing there? Get back to the kitchen immediately." Sophia blinked, the spell broken. When she looked again, Vincent was back to his conversation, smiling at an oil heiress who hung on his every word. She turned and ran back to the kitchen, her heart beating erratically. She must have imagined that moment. Vincent Torino had 100 of Los Angeles' most desirable women competing for his attention. Why would he look twice at a Mexican maid who cleaned his house? But as she helped prepare the 7-course dinner that would be served at 8 p.m., Sophia couldn't get that look out of her mind. There was something in it that made her question everything she thought she knew about Vincent Torino and about her place in his world. Outside the kitchen, she could hear the sound of laughter, animated conversations, and classical music. The ball had officially begun, and 100 women were fighting for the heart of Los Angeles' most dangerous and desirable man. None of them knew that heart had already been conquered by someone who wasn't even in the competition. 2 hours later, the ball was in full swing. The sound of the chamber orchestra echoed through the main hall as couples danced on the marble floor under the Los Angeles starlight. Sophia watched discreetly through the kitchen's small window, fascinated by the elegance and sophistication unfolding before her eyes. Vincent was at the center of attention, as always. She saw him dance with Isabella Rossi, then with Scarlett Montgomery, and then with a succession of other stunning women. Each tried to monopolize his time, whispering in his ear, laughing at his jokes, touching his arm in seemingly casual but clearly calculated ways. "Sophia, stop spying and help me with these trays," grumbled Maria, one of the other maids, a 45-year-old Salvadoran woman who had worked at the mansion for 5 years. "Mrs. Benedetti will have a fit if she catches you looking at the guests." Sophia stepped away from the window, picking up a tray of petit fours decorated with gold leaves. "Sorry, Maria. It's just that I've never seen anything like this before, and you'd better keep it that way." Maria lowered her voice, looking around to make sure no one was listening. "These women are dangerous, mija. Each one would kill to be in the other's place, and all of them would kill anyone who threatened their chances with the boss." Sophia frowned. "What do you mean?" Maria hesitated, then moved closer. "You're new here, so you don't know. But 2 years ago, there was a waitress who worked at Mr. Torino's events. Pretty, young, like you. One of the guests, I won't say who, found out the boss was interested in her. The girl disappeared a week later, never seen again." A chill ran down Sophia's spine. "You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to keep you alive. Maria gripped her arm. These women have power, money, and connections you can't even imagine. To them, a Mexican maid is less than nothing. So keep your head down and do your job. Before Sophia could respond, Mrs. Benedetti entered the kitchen like a hurricane. Sophia, Mr. Torino wants you to take champagne to the garden. He's giving a private tour to some special guests. Sophia picked up a tray of crystal glasses and headed to the garden through the kitchen's side door. The Los Angeles night air was perfumed with jasmine and roses, and the city lights created a sparkling backdrop for the mansion's perfectly manicured gardens. The Torino mansion's garden was a work of art in itself. Stone paths wound between exotic flower beds, marble fountains, and classical sculptures. Century-old trees provided shade during the day and created intimate corners at night. In the center, there was an infinity pool that seemed to merge with the city view below. Sophia found Vincent near the main fountain, surrounded by a select group of 6 women. She recognized Isabella Rossi, Scarlett Montgomery, and 4 others who were clearly among the most influential of the night. All hung on Vincent's every word as he explained the history of a Renaissance sculpture he had acquired at an auction in Rome. Ah, Sophia. Vincent turned when he saw her approaching, and again she felt that intense gaze. Perfect timing. Ladies, allow me to introduce Sophia, who takes care of my home with incomparable dedication. Sophia almost dropped the tray. Vincent had never introduced her to guests before. She murmured a polite, "Good evening," and began serving the champagne, trying to ignore the evaluating looks from the 6 women. "What an interesting accent," commented Scarlett Montgomery, her icy blue eyes examining Sophia from head to toe. "Where are you from, dear?" "Mexico, ma'am," Sophia replied quietly, concentrating on not spilling the champagne. "How exotic," Isabella Rossi smiled, but there was venom in her voice. "Vincent, you've always had an eclectic taste in staff." Vincent stiffened almost imperceptibly. "Sophia is one of the hardest working and most trustworthy people I know, qualities I value greatly." There was something in his tone that made the 6 women exchange glances. Sophia finished serving the champagne and prepared to leave, but Vincent surprised her again. "Sophia, could you show us the roses you planted in the East Garden? I'm sure the ladies would like to see them." Sophia blinked, confused. She hadn't planted roses in the East Garden. In fact, she didn't even know there was an East Garden. But something in Vincent's gaze made her nod. "Of course, Mr. Torino." As the group walked through the gardens, Sophia stayed a few steps behind, carrying the empty tray. She could hear the women's conversations, subtly malicious comments about other guests, not so subtle attempts to impress Vincent with their connections and achievements, and speculation about who he would choose at the end of the night. "Vincent, darling," purred a Hollywood producer named Catherine Wells, "I heard you're considering investing in the film industry. I could introduce you to some very lucrative opportunities, and I have tech connections that could triple your investments in 2 years," added Scarlett Montgomery. Vincent smiled politely, but Sophia noticed his eyes kept wandering in her direction. When they reached what was supposedly the East Garden, actually just an area with some common rose bushes, he turned to her. "Sophia, why don't you tell us about your work with these roses?" Sophia felt panic. She knew nothing about gardening beyond the basics she had learned helping her grandmother in Mexico. But something in Vincent's encouraging gaze made her take a deep breath and improvise. "Well, these are David Austin roses," she began, remembering something she had read in a magazine in the dentist's waiting room. "They need a lot of care and attention. You have to know them individually, understand their specific needs. You can't just treat them all the same way." Vincent smiled, a genuine smile she rarely saw. "Exactly. True beauty requires personal care, doesn't it?" The 6 women seemed bored with the gardening discussion, but Sophia noticed Isabella Rossi watching her with disturbing intensity. "How insightful," Isabella said slowly. "Vincent, you clearly value unique perspectives." Before Vincent could respond, Tony Benedetti appeared in the garden. "Boss, sorry to interrupt, but you have an important call. From Sicily." Vincent's face hardened. "Ladies, excuse me," Urgent family matters. Sophia, could you escort them back to the hall? He walked away quickly with Tony, leaving Sophia alone with the 6 most dangerous women in Los Angeles. The silence that followed was charged with tension. Well, Scarlett Montgomery was the first to speak, her voice sweet as poisoned honey. It seems our host has diverse interests. It's fascinating how some men are attracted to charity projects, added Isabella Rossi, her eyes never leaving Sophia's face. Sophia felt her face heat up. I should take you back to the hall. Oh, there's no rush. Catherine Wells approached, her expensive perfume almost suffocating. We're just getting to know Vincent's staff better. How long have you worked here, dear? 2 years, ma'am. 2 years, Scarlett repeated thoughtfully. Enough time to familiarize yourself with the boss's preferences. Sophia didn't like the tone of the conversation. Mr. Torino is a very respectful employer. Now, if you'll excuse me. Of course he is, Isabella smiled coldly. But you know, dear, men like Vincent have complex needs and responsibilities to people of their own social level. The threat was clear, even if veiled. Sophia swallowed hard, but kept her head high. I understand my place here perfectly. How good? Scarlett moved closer, her voice dropping to a threatening whisper. Because it would be a shame if something happened to such a vulnerable young woman. Los Angeles can be a very dangerous city for those without adequate protection. Sophia felt real fear for the first time. These women weren't just competing among themselves. They saw any potential threat as something to be eliminated. I really need to get back to work, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Of course, Isabella waved graciously. But remember what we discussed. Some opportunities in life are unique, and some people are easily replaceable. As they walked back to the hall, Sophia felt the 6 women's eyes burning into her back. Maria was right. These women were dangerous, and for some reason she couldn't understand. Vincent had put her directly in their crosshairs. Back in the hall, the party continued in full swing. Sophia took refuge in the kitchen, her hands trembling slightly as she helped prepare dessert. She tried to focus on work, but couldn't stop thinking about the veiled threats she had received. Why had Vincent made a point of introducing her? Why had he invented that story about the roses? And why, every time their eyes met, did she feel like he was trying to tell her something he couldn't express in words? At 11 p.m., guests began saying their goodbyes. Sophia watched from the kitchen as Vincent politely greeted each woman, but without the warmth she had seen in his eyes when he looked at her. Isabella Rossi was one of the last to leave, whispering something in Vincent's ear that made him stiffen. When the last guest departed, the mansion finally fell silent. The cleaning crew began working, removing traces of the extravagant night. Sophia was helping collect glasses when Mrs. Benedetti approached. Sophia, Mr. Torino wants to see you in his office. Sophia's heart raced. Did I do something wrong? I don't know. Just go. Sophia climbed the stairs on trembling legs, heading to Vincent's office on the 2nd floor. The door was ajar, and she could see him standing before the panoramic window, still wearing his tuxedo, but with his tie loosened and the first buttons of his shirt open. She knocked softly on the door. Mr. Torino, Mrs. Benedetti said you wanted to see me. Vincent turned, and Sophia was surprised to see exhaustion on his face. Come in, Sophia, and close the door. She obeyed, standing nervously near the entrance. Vincent's office was impressive. Walls lined with books, a solid mahogany desk, paintings she suspected were originals by famous masters. But it was the view that truly impressed. All of Los Angeles stretched below them, a sea of lights extending to the horizon. Did you enjoy yourself tonight? Vincent asked, his voice softer than she expected. Sophia blinked, surprised by the question. I was working, Mr. Torino. That's not what I asked. He approached, and Sophia felt her heart accelerate. Did you like meeting my guests? There was something in his tone that made her hesitate. They are very impressive. Vincent laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. Impressive. Yes, I suppose they are. He stopped in front of her, his dark eyes studying her intensely. And what did you think of your conversations in the garden. Sophia felt her blood freeze. Had he heard? I don't understand. Sophia, Vincent said softly, I didn't build what I have by being naive. I know exactly what kind of women were here tonight, and I know what kind of advice they probably gave you. Sophia lowered her eyes. They just made it clear that I should know my place. And what is your place? The question was asked in such a low tone she almost didn't hear it. Sophia looked at him, confused. I am your employee, Mr. Torino. Vincent remained silent for a long moment, his eyes never leaving her face. Then, to her complete surprise, he reached out and gently touched her cheek. What if I told you I don't want you to be just my employee? Sophia's world stopped. She looked at him, searching for signs he was joking, but there was only sincerity in his dark eyes. Mr. Torino, Vincent, he corrected softly. My name is Vincent. Vincent, she repeated, the words sounding strange on her lips. I don't understand. You had 100 of the most beautiful and powerful women in Los Angeles competing for your attention tonight, and none of them interested me for even a second, he said, his hand still on her cheek. Do you want to know why? Sophia nodded, unable to speak. Because none of them is you. Before Sophia could fully process his words, Vincent leaned in and kissed her. It was a soft, almost hesitant kiss, as if he were giving her the chance to pull away. But Sophia didn't pull away. Instead, she felt herself melting in his arms. 2 years of unrecognized tension finally finding release. When they separated, both were breathing heavily. Vincent rested his forehead against hers. Sophia, I know this is complicated. I know our worlds are different, but I can't pretend anymore that I don't feel what I feel for you. Sophia felt tears sting her eyes. Vincent, this is impossible. You saw those women tonight. They have power, money, influence. You're the most real woman I've ever met, he interrupted. You're kind, hardworking, honest. You care about the little things, about the roses in the garden, about doing everything perfectly, about treating everyone with respect. Those women tonight, they see me as a trophy, a conquest. You see me as Vincent. Sophia knew she should be sensible, should remember the threats she had received, should think about the consequences. But when she looked into Vincent's eyes, she saw something she had never seen before. Real vulnerability. What does this mean? She asked in a whisper. It means I want to try. It means I want to see where this can take us. Vincent held her hands. But it also means you need to know it won't be easy. My life, my business. There are dangers you can't imagine. Sophia thought about Isabella and Scarlett's veiled threats, about the story Maria had told about the disappeared waitress. She knew she was getting into something much bigger and more dangerous than she could comprehend. But when she looked at Vincent, really looked at him beyond the power and danger, she saw a man who was as lost as she was. I want to try too, she whispered. Vincent smiled, the first genuine smile she had seen from him all night. He kissed her again, more deeply this time, and Sophia felt like she was jumping off a cliff without knowing where she would land. Outside the mansion, a black car was parked in the shadow of the trees. Inside it, Isabella Rossi lowered her binoculars and smiled coldly. Interesting, she murmured to herself, picking up her phone. Very interesting indeed. She dialed a number she knew by heart. It's me. We have a problem, and I know exactly how to solve it. The war for Vincent Torino's heart had just begun, and Sofia Martinez had no idea she had become the primary target. The next morning, Sophia woke up in her small apartment in East Los Angeles with the feeling that everything had been a dream. The contrast between her reality, a 30-square-meter studio in a 3-story building she shared with 5 other immigrant families, and the opulence of the Torino mansion was so stark that it seemed impossible the previous night's events had actually happened. But when she touched her lips, she could still taste Vincent's kiss. When she closed her eyes, she could still see the intensity in his gaze when he said he wanted her. And when she looked in the tiny bathroom mirror, she saw a different woman, someone who had been seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. Sophia's apartment was simple but clean. A single bed against the wall, a small table that served as kitchen and desk, a used armchair she had bought at a thrift store, and some family photos from Mexico hanging on the peeling walls. It was all she could afford on her maid's salary, even working for one of Los Angeles' wealthiest families. She dressed quickly, dark jeans, simple white blouse, comfortable sneakers, and took 2 buses to reach the mansion in Beverly Hills. During the hour-and-a-half journey, she tried to process what had happened. Vincent Torino, one of Los Angeles' most powerful and dangerous men, had said he wanted her, not as an employee, but as what exactly? When she arrived at the mansion at 7 a.m., she found a scene of frantic activity. Professional cleaning crews were removing the last traces of the previous night's ball, while Mrs. Benedetti coordinated everything with her usual military efficiency. "Sophia, where were you? You're 15 minutes late," Mrs. Benedetti scolded her, but there was something different in her tone, a coldness that wasn't there before. "Sorry, Mrs. Benedetti. The bus was delayed." The housekeeper studied her with suspicious eyes. "Mr. Torino wants to see you in his office. Immediately." Sophia felt her stomach contract. In the light of day, away from the previous night's magic, the reality of her situation began to crystallize. She climbed the stairs on trembling legs, each step echoing in the morning silence. The office door was open, and Vincent was sitting behind his desk, talking on the phone in Italian. He was dressed casually, dark jeans and a white linen shirt, but still radiated power and authority. When he saw her, he gestured for her to enter and close the door. "Sì, capisco, ma questo non cambia nulla," he said into the phone, his eyes never leaving Sophia. "Ne riparleremo più tardi." He hung up and remained silent for a moment, studying her. Sophia stayed near the door, suddenly unsure about how to act. The previous night, in the heat of the moment, everything had seemed natural. Now, in the harsh light of morning, she felt like an intruder in his world. "How did you sleep?" Vincent finally asked, his voice more formal than she expected. "Well, thank you," she replied, equally formal. Vincent stood and walked to the window, hands in his pockets. "Sophia, we need to talk about last night." Sophia's heart sank. He had changed his mind. Of course he had changed his mind. In the light of day, away from the garden's romantic atmosphere, he had realized the madness of what he was proposing. "I understand," she said quietly. "It was a mistake. You don't need to explain." Vincent turned quickly. "A mistake? Is that what you think?" Sophia blinked, confused by the intensity in his voice. "I thought that. Sophia, come here." His voice was soft, but there was an authority in it she couldn't ignore. She approached hesitantly, stopping a few meters away. Vincent closed the distance between them, his hands finding her face. "Last night wasn't a mistake. It was the first real thing that's happened in my life in years." His dark eyes studied her intensely. "But you need to understand the implications of what we're considering." "What implications?" Vincent sighed, his hands falling to his sides. "My life isn't simple, Sophia. My business, my family. There are aspects you don't know, and I hope you never need to know. But if we're going to try this, you need to be aware. There will be dangers." "What kind of dangers?" Before Vincent could answer, there was a knock on the door. Tony Benedetti entered without waiting for permission, his face grim. "Boss, we have a problem." Vincent stiffened. "What happened?" Tony looked at Sophia, clearly hesitant to speak in front of her. Vincent followed his gaze. "Sophia, could you give us a moment?" She nodded and headed for the door, but Tony's voice stopped her. "Actually, boss, this involves her." Sophia turned, a chill running down her spine. Vincent frowned. "Explain." Tony pulled out his phone and showed the screen to Vincent. This appeared on the LA Elite gossip blog this morning. Sophia saw Vincent's face darken as he read. "Son of a bitch." "What is it?" Sophia asked, though part of her didn't want to know. Vincent hesitated, then turned the phone toward her. On the screen was a photo of her and Vincent in the garden the previous night, clearly taken from a distance with a telephoto lens. The headline read, "Mafia boss Torino finds love with Mexican maid. Scandal rocks La Elite." Sophia felt her blood freeze. The photo had been taken at the exact moment Vincent touched her cheek, and the angle made it seem much more intimate than it really had been. How did they get this? Vincent asked, his voice dangerously low. Still investigating, Tony replied. But boss, this isn't the worst part. We received 3 calls this morning. One from the Castellano family in New York, one from the Benedetto family in Chicago, and one from your uncle Salvatore in Sicily. Vincent clenched his fists. And what did they want? Explanations and assurances that you're not compromising the family because of a... Tony looked at Sophia and stopped. Because of a what? Vincent asked, his voice icy. Because of an inappropriate distraction, Tony finished diplomatically. Sophia felt like she had been punched in the stomach. She wasn't just an employee now. She was an inappropriate distraction causing problems for Vincent with his own family. I should go, she said quietly. No. Vincent turned to her, his voice firm. You're not going anywhere. Vincent, I don't want to cause problems for you. The problems aren't your fault. He turned to Tony. Who else has seen this? It's spreading quickly. TMZ picked up the story, and 3 local TV stations have already called asking for comments. Vincent ran his hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. And the women from last night? Isabella Rossi posted something cryptic on Instagram about discovering people's true nature. Scarlett Montgomery gave an interview to Entertainment Tonight about how she was shocked and disappointed with Vincent's choices. Sophia felt sick. They knew this was going to happen. Vincent looked at her. What do you mean? Last night in the garden they threatened me, said I should know my place, that Los Angeles could be dangerous for those without protection. Sophia swallowed hard. One of them must have taken this photo. Vincent remained silent for a long moment, but Sophia could see anger building in his eyes. When he finally spoke, his voice was controlled, but there was an underlying threat that made her shiver. Tony, I want to know who took this photo, and I want to know today. Already investigating, boss. And I want a meeting with the heads of the other families. Tonight. Tony looked surprised. Boss, are you sure? This could escalate things. Things already escalated the moment someone decided to threaten me through Sophia. Vincent turned to her. Are you okay? Sophia nodded, though she wasn't okay. She was terrified. Vincent, maybe it would be better if you what? Give up? Run away? Vincent approached her. Sophia, I told you last night it wouldn't be easy, but I also told you I wanted to try. Has that changed for you? Sophia looked at him, then at Tony, who clearly disapproved of the entire situation. She thought about her simple life, her small but safe apartment, her predictable routine. Then she thought about the previous night's kiss, the way Vincent had looked at her, the feeling of finally being seen by someone. No, she said quietly. It hasn't changed. Vincent smiled, the first genuine smile since she had entered the office. Then we'll face this together. Tony cleared his throat. Boss, with all due respect, this could be very dangerous for her. These women have resources that are nothing compared to mine, Vincent interrupted. Sophia, do you trust me? She looked into his eyes and saw sincerity, determination, and something more. Something that made her feel that maybe, just maybe, they could overcome this. Yes, she whispered. Then let me handle this. Vincent turned to Tony. Double the mansion's security, and I want discreet protection for Sophia. 24 hours a day. Boss, this will draw even more attention. I don't care. Her safety is priority number 1. Sophia felt a mixture of gratitude and terror. Vincent, is this really necessary? Before he could answer, Tony's phone rang. He answered, his expression growing increasingly grim. I understand. Yes, we'll increase security immediately. He hung up and looked at Vincent. Boss, we have another problem. What now? Someone broke into Sophia's apartment this morning. Sophia felt the world spin around her. What? Your neighbors called the police when they heard noise. When they arrived, they found the place ransacked. Nothing was stolen, but there was a message on the wall. What message? Vincent asked, his voice dangerously low. Tony hesitated. It said, some people don't know their place. Maybe it's time to learn. Sophia felt her legs fail. Vincent caught her before she could fall, his expression furious. This is over, he said, his voice icy. Tony, I want all our men on the streets. I want to know who did this. And I want to know now. Yes, boss. And Sophia. Vincent turned to her, his hands holding her face. You're not going back to that apartment. You're staying here, where I can protect you. Vincent, I can't. It's not a suggestion, he said firmly. Someone just broke into your home and threatened you. That means the situation is much more serious than we thought. Sophia looked at him, seeing the determination in his eyes. She knew she had no choice, not if she wanted to stay safe, but she also knew that accepting his protection meant fully entering his world, with all the dangers that implied. For how long, she asked. For as long as necessary, Vincent replied, until I'm certain you're safe. Tony cleared his throat again. Boss, there's one more thing. The call I just received, it was from Isabella Rossi. She wants to meet with you this afternoon. Vincent laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. Of course she does. Tell her I'll be there. Vincent, no, Sophia grabbed his arm. It's obviously a trap. Probably, he agreed. But it's time to make it clear to all these women that I'm not a prize to be won, and that anyone who threatens you will have to deal with me. Sophia saw the determination in his eyes and knew she couldn't dissuade him. But she also saw something more, a darkness that reminded her that Vincent Torino wasn't just a rich man. He was dangerous, and he was about to prove it. Just be careful, she whispered. Vincent kissed her forehead softly. I always am. Tony, prepare the car, and Sophia, he looked at her one last time. Mrs. Benedetti will show you your new quarters. You're home now. As Vincent left the office, Sophia wondered if she had made the biggest mistake of her life. But when she thought about the alternative, returning to her old life, pretending nothing had happened, always wondering what if, she knew there was no going back. She was in Vincent Torino's world now, for better or worse. And something told her things were just beginning to get complicated. Outside the mansion, in a discreet car, a man lowered his binoculars and picked up his phone. She's inside, he reported. Torino is protecting her as we expected. Perfect, came the reply from the other end of the line. Now we can move to phase 2. The war for Vincent Torino's heart had escalated to something much more dangerous. And Sofia Martinez was right in the center of the approaching storm. 3 hours later, Vincent was sitting at a reserved table at Spago, one of Beverly Hills' most exclusive restaurants. The establishment, known for its celebrity and mogul clientele, offered the privacy necessary for delicate conversations. He had arrived 15 minutes before the scheduled time, a tactic he always used to assess the terrain and ensure his men were strategically positioned. Tony was sitting at a nearby table, disguised as a businessman dining alone, but his eyes never left Vincent. 2 other trusted men were positioned at the entrance and bar, ready to act at the first sign of trouble. Isabella Rossi arrived punctually at 2 p.m., as Vincent expected. She was the type of woman who made a point of being punctual. She controlled every aspect of her public image with military precision. She wore a black Chanel dress that cost more than most people earned in a year, and her hair was pulled back in an elegant chignon that highlighted her sculpted facial bones. Vincent, darling, she purred, kissing his cheeks European style before sitting down. Thank you for agreeing to meet me on such short notice. Isabella, Vincent replied coldly, not standing up. Let's get straight to the point. What do you want? Isabella smiled, but there was ice in her eyes. Always so direct. It's one of the things I admire about you. She signaled the waiter. A glass of your best Barolo, please. Vincent waited in silence while she ordered her drink, studying every micro-expression on her face. Isabella Rossi was an award-winning actress, but he had learned to read people long before she stepped on a stage. There was tension in her shoulders, a stiffness in her smile that betrayed her anxiety. So, she began after the waiter brought her wine. I read an interesting article this morning about you and your maid, and I was concerned about you, darling. Los Angeles can be a very cruel city, especially when it comes to reputations. Isabella took a sip of wine, her eyes never leaving Vincent's face. Men in your position need to be careful about the associations they make. Vincent leaned back in his chair, his expression remaining neutral. What kind of associations do you suggest I avoid? Oh, Vincent, Isabella laughed, but the sound was forced. You know exactly what I'm talking about. This girl, Sophia, isn't it? She's sweet, I'm sure, but you two live in completely different worlds. She doesn't understand the pressures, expectations, dangers of your life. And you do? Of course I do. Isabella leaned forward, her voice dropping to an intimate whisper. I grew up in this world, Vincent. I know how to navigate the political, social, and other complexities. I know how to be an asset to a man like you, not a liability. Vincent took a sip of his espresso, considering her words. Interesting perspective. And I suppose you have a solution to my supposed problem. I do. Isabella smiled. And this time, there was genuine confidence in her expression. You need someone who can stand by your side publicly, someone society will accept, someone who can open doors instead of closing them, someone like me. And in return? In return, you gain a partner who can elevate your social position, expand your connections in Hollywood and beyond, and, she paused dramatically, solve your little problem with the Mexican girl. Vincent felt a wave of cold anger but kept his expression controlled. Solve how? Isabella shrugged elegantly. These things have a way of resolving themselves. A new job in another city, perhaps. An opportunity she can't refuse. Or, she paused, circumstances that make her realize it would be better for everyone if she simply disappeared. The silence that followed was charged with tension. Vincent studied Isabella for a long moment, seeing for the first time the real woman behind the sophistication mask. There was a coldness in her eyes, a calculated cruelty he recognized. He had seen it in many men from his world, but rarely in high society women. You're offering me a deal, he said finally. I'm offering a mutually beneficial solution, Isabella corrected. You get a suitable partner. I get the man I've always wanted, and everyone lives happily ever after. And if I refuse? Isabella's smile faltered slightly. Why would you refuse? Vincent, be realistic. This girl can't give you what you need. She has no education, connection, sophistication. She's a fantasy, not a real-life partner. Vincent leaned forward, his voice dropping to a dangerous tone. Isabella, let me clarify something for you. Sophia is worth more than all the women who were at my house last night combined. She has something none of you have. Authenticity. Isabella blinked, clearly not expecting this response. Vincent, you're being emotional. Think logically. I am thinking very logically, Vincent interrupted. And logically, any woman who threatens another person to get what she wants is not someone I'd like to associate with. I didn't threaten anyone, Isabella protested, but there was growing panic in her voice. Vincent pulled out his phone and touched the screen. Isabella's voice echoed from the speaker. It would be a shame if something happened to such a vulnerable young woman. Los Angeles can be a very dangerous city for those without adequate protection. Isabella paled. Did you really think I wouldn't have my own home's garden monitored? Vincent put away his phone. Especially during an event with 100 guests I barely know? Isabella tried to regain her composure. Vincent, you're misinterpreting. I'm interpreting exactly as I should. Vincent stood up, throwing some bills on the table. And now I'm going to make something very clear to you, Isabella. If anything happens to Sophia, I will hold you personally responsible, and you won't like the consequences. Isabella stood up too, her sophistication mask finally falling completely. You're making a mistake, Vincent. This girl will destroy you. Your family will never accept her. Your business will suffer. Your reputation. My reputation has survived much worse things than loving a good woman, Vincent replied coldly. And as for my family and business, let me worry about that. He turned to leave, but Isabella's voice stopped him. Vincent, there was a new quality in her voice, something darker, more threatening. You're not the only powerful man in Los Angeles, and not all of them are as sentimental as you. Vincent turned slowly, his eyes narrowing. What does that mean? Isabella smiled, but now there was pure malice in her expression. It means if you won't be reasonable, perhaps others will have to be reasonable for you. Isabella? Vincent said, his voice so low she had to lean in to hear. If you or anyone associated with you touches a hair on Sophia's head, I will hunt you down personally. And when I find you, You'll discover why people respect me in Los Angeles." Isabella swallowed hard, finally realizing she had gone too far. "Vincent, But he had already turned and was walking toward the exit, Tony discreetly rising to follow him. Outside the restaurant, Vincent stopped on the sidewalk, breathing deeply to control his anger. Tony approached. "Boss, did you get what you needed?" "More than I needed," Vincent replied grimly. She confirmed she's behind the threats and made it clear she won't stop. "What do you want me to do?" Vincent considered for a moment. "Double Sophia's security, and I want 24-hour surveillance on Isabella Rossi. I want to know who she talks to, where she goes, what she eats for breakfast, and if she tries something." Vincent looked at Tony, and there was a coldness in his eyes that made the older man step back slightly. "Then she'll discover why no one messes with the Torino family." As they drove back to the mansion, Vincent couldn't stop thinking about Isabella's words. Other powerful men. That suggested she wasn't acting alone. There was a larger conspiracy at play, and Sophia was right in the center of it. When they arrived at the mansion, Vincent went straight to look for Sophia. He found her in the library, sitting in a leather armchair reading a book. She had changed out of her uniform into casual clothes, jeans and a simple blouse, but still looked out of place in the opulent environment. "How did it go?" she asked, looking up from her book. Vincent sat in the armchair next to her. Enlightening. Isabella confirmed she's behind the threats. Sophia closed the book, her expression worried. "And now?" "Now we prepare. She made it clear she won't give up easily." Vincent held Sophia's hand, and she mentioned other powerful men who might be involved. Sophia felt a chill. "Vincent, maybe it will be better if I just—" "No." Vincent turned to her, his hands holding her face. "Sophia, listen to me. I won't let them intimidate you. I won't let them hurt you. And I definitely won't let them separate us. But if this is causing problems with your family, your business, my family will understand. And my business has survived worse things." Vincent kissed her forehead softly. "Sophia, you need to understand something. I've spent my whole life making choices based on what was expected of me, what was politically correct, what was best for business. For the first time, I'm making a choice based on what I want. And I want you." Sophia felt tears sting her eyes. "I want you too, but I'm scared." "I know I'm scared too," Vincent admitted, "but I won't let fear stop us from trying." Before Sophia could respond, Tony appeared in the library doorway, his expression urgent. "Boss, sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation." Vincent stiffened. "What happened?" "We just intercepted a phone conversation. Isabella Rossi is organizing a meeting for tonight with Scarlett Montgomery, Catherine Wells, and—" Tony hesitated. "And who?" "Marcus Benedetto." Vincent remained silent for a long moment. Marcus Benedetto was the head of one of Los Angeles' rival criminal families, someone who had been trying to expand his territory for years. If he was involved, the situation had escalated far beyond a simple love triangle. "Where's the meeting?" Vincent asked. "At Benedetto's private club in West Hollywood." Vincent stood up, his mind already working. "Sophia, you'll stay here with extra protection." "Tony, I want all our men on maximum alert." "Vincent, what are you going to do?" Sophia asked, standing up too. Vincent looked at her, and Sophia saw a transformation in his eyes. The gentle man who had kissed her in the garden had disappeared, replaced by something darker, more dangerous. "I'm going to remind everyone in Los Angeles why the Torino name is respected," he said simply. Sophia grabbed his arm. "Please, be careful." Vincent kissed her hand. "I always am, but Sophia—" Vincent kissed her hand. "I always am, but Sophia, if something happens to me, Tony has instructions to take you to a safe place. You'll be okay." "Nothing will happen to you," Sophia said firmly. "I won't let it." Vincent smiled, a genuine smile that softened his features. "Then I have one more reason to come home." As Vincent left to prepare for what promised to be a dangerous night, Sophia wondered if she had completely underestimated the world she had entered. But when she thought about the alternative, a life without Vincent, she knew she would face any danger to stay by his side. Outside the mansion, in an abandoned building 3 blocks away, a man adjusted the focus of his precision rifle and spoke into the radio. "Target confirmed. Awaiting orders." The response came immediately. "Wait, it's not time yet, but be ready." The war for Vincent Torino's heart was about to become literal, and Sofia Martinez was about to discover exactly how far some people would go to get what they wanted. Night fell over Los Angeles like a black cloak, and with it came a tension that seemed to electrify the air. At the Torino mansion, Sofia paced nervously through the library, unable to concentrate on anything other than the meeting Vincent had gone to face. It was 10:30 p.m., and he had left 2 hours ago with Tony and 6 of his most trusted men. Mrs. Benedetti had tried to convince her to have dinner, but Sofia couldn't eat. Her stomach was in knots, and every noise in the house made her jump. 2 guards were positioned outside the library, and she could see others patrolling the gardens through the windows. The mansion had transformed into a fortress. "Señorita Sofia," Maria appeared at the door, carrying a tray with tea. "I brought something to calm your nerves." Sofia smiled gratefully. "Thank you, Maria. You shouldn't be here so late." Mrs. Benedetti asked all the staff to stay tonight, for your safety. Maria placed the tray on a side table and approached. "May I ask something?" "Of course. Do you really love him, Mr. Torino?" Sofia considered the question. Love? She had barely known Vincent personally for more than a few days, but there was something about him, a vulnerability hidden beneath all that strength, a gentleness he showed only to her, that made her feel as if she had known him for years. "I think so," she admitted. "I know it sounds crazy." Maria nodded understandingly. "The heart doesn't follow logic, mija. But you need to know you've chosen a very dangerous man to love." "I know. Everyone keeps reminding me of that." "I'm not trying to scare you." Maria sat down next to Sofia. "I'm trying to prepare you. Vincent Torino is a good man, but he lives in a world where goodness can be seen as weakness. And now that he's chosen you, that world will test both of you." Before Sofia could respond, the mansion's lights flickered and then went out completely. The house plunged into total darkness. "What the hell?" Maria murmured. Immediately, Sofia heard alarmed voices from the guards, followed by the sound of footsteps running through the corridors. A flashlight appeared at the door, one of Vincent's guards. "Señorita Martinez, we need to move you to the safe room, now." Sofia stood up, her heart racing. "What's happening?" "Someone cut the main power. It could be a distraction for an attack." The guard, a robust Hispanic man named Carlos, held her arm gently but firmly. "Please come with me." Sofia followed Carlos through the dark corridors, illuminated only by emergency flashlights. Maria came behind them, murmuring prayers in Spanish. They went up to the 3rd floor, an area of the mansion Sofia had never seen before. Carlos stopped in front of a steel door disguised as wood and entered a code on a hidden panel. The door opened, revealing a room that looked like something from a spy movie. Reinforced walls, multiple monitoring screens, and supplies enough for a week. "Vincent built this?" Sofia asked, impressed despite her anxiety. 5 years ago? He always prepares for the worst." Carlos checked the screens, which showed different angles of the property through night vision cameras. "Stay here until we get the all-clear signal." Sofia sat in a padded chair, watching the screens. She could see guards moving through the gardens, their weapons drawn. The tension was palpable even through the monitors. "Carlos," she called. "Where exactly did Vincent go tonight?" Carlos hesitated. "To a meeting with people who don't like him very much, señorita." "What kind of meeting?" Before Carlos could answer, his radio crackled. "Carlos, this is Miguel. We have movement on the east perimeter. 3 vehicles approaching." Carlos grabbed the radio. "Identification?" "Negative. Dark windows, no visible plates." Sofia felt her blood freeze. "They came here?" Carlos was speaking rapidly on the radio, coordinating the mansion's defense. Sofia watched the screens, seeing the guards position themselves strategically. Then she saw something that made her scream. "Carlos, look at screen 3. On the screen, she could see figures dressed in black scaling the back wall of the property. There were at least 6 men, all armed, moving with military precision. "Shit," Carlos muttered, speaking into the radio. "We have confirmed intruders. South sector. Repeat, confirmed intruders." The sound of gunshots echoed through the night, making Sophia jump. On the screens, she could see flashes of light. Vincent's guards engaging the intruders. It was like watching an action movie, except it was real and happening right below her. "Who are they?" Sophia asked, her voice trembling. "Probably Benedetto's men," Carlos replied, checking his own weapon. "Or mercenaries hired by your socialite friends." Maria crossed herself. "Dios mío, this is a war!" The gunfight continued for another 10 minutes that felt like hours. Sophia watched the screens, trying to follow what was happening. She saw 2 of the intruders fall, but also saw one of Vincent's guards get hit and dragged to safety by his colleagues. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, silence returned. Carlos's radio crackled. "Carlos, this is Miguel. Area secure. Intruders neutralized or fled." Sophia sighed in relief, but Carlos still looked tense. "And the boss? Any news?" "Negative. Still no contact." Sophia's worry returned with full force. "How long has it been since you spoke with Vincent?" 3 hours, Carlos admitted reluctantly. Sophia stood up. "Is that normal?" "No." Before Sophia could fully process this information, the mansion's lights came back on. Carlos checked the screens again, now with normal vision. "Looks like we managed to restore power. But we'll stay here until—" His radio interrupted. "Carlos, we have vehicles approaching, but this time we recognize them. It's the boss." Sophia felt a wave of relief so intense it almost knocked her down. "He's okay." Carlos smiled for the first time that night. "Seems like it, señorita." 15 minutes later, Sophia was running through the mansion corridors toward the main entrance. She didn't care about security protocols or Mrs. Benedetti's disapproval. She needed to see Vincent with her own eyes. He was standing in the main hall, still wearing his dark suit, but now there was blood on his shirt and a cut above his left eyebrow. Tony was beside him, reporting something in a low voice, but Vincent looked up the moment Sophia appeared at the top of the staircase. Their eyes met across the space, and Sophia saw relief, exhaustion, and something more, a fierce determination that made her shiver. She ran down the stairs and threw herself into his arms, not caring who was watching. Vincent held her tightly, burying his face in her hair. "Are you okay?" she whispered. "I am now," he replied, his voice hoarse. Sophia pulled back to look at him better, her hands gently touching the cut on his forehead. "You're hurt." "It's superficial." Vincent held her hands. "But you, I heard there were problems here too. Your men protected me." "But Vincent, what happened at the meeting?" Vincent exchanged a look with Tony before responding. "Let's talk in my office. Tony, I want a complete report on the attack here in an hour." In the office, Vincent served 2 glasses of whiskey and handed one to Sophia before sitting heavily in his chair. She could see exhaustion in his eyes, but also a resolution that wasn't there before. "The meeting was enlightening," he began. "Isabella was there, as we expected, along with Scarlett Montgomery, Catherine Wells, and Marcus Benedetto. And I discovered this goes far beyond jealousy or social competition." Vincent took a sip of whiskey. "Benedetto is using this situation as an excuse to try to take territory from my family. He convinced these women that I'm weak for getting involved with you, that it's the perfect time to challenge me." Sophia felt nauseous. "So this is my fault?" "No." Vincent stood up and knelt in front of her chair, holding her hands. "Sophia, listen to me. Benedetto has been looking for an excuse for years. If it wasn't you, it would be something else. You just gave him a convenient narrative. But if I wasn't here, if you weren't here, I'd still have to deal with Benedetto eventually. The only difference is, now I have something worth fighting for." Vincent kissed her hands. "Sophia, tonight I had to make choices. Choices about what kind of man I want to be, what kind of life I want to live." "What choices?" Vincent hesitated, and Sophia saw something dark pass through his eyes. "Benedetto offered me a deal. He would stop challenging me if I handed you over to Isabella and married one of his approved candidates." Sophia felt like she had been punched. "And what did you say?" I told him he could go to hell. Vincent smiled, but there was a coldness in it that made her shiver. And then I made it very clear that anyone who tried to hurt you would have to go through my dead body. Vincent, the war was already declared, Sophia. Benedetto was just looking for an excuse to start it officially. Vincent stood up and walked to the window. But now he knows I won't back down. And Isabella and her friends know their threats won't work. Sophia joined him at the window, looking at the Los Angeles lights below. What does this mean for us? It means things will get more dangerous before they get better. Benedetto won't give up easily, and these women have resources that can cause problems. Vincent turned to her. Sophia, I'll understand if you want out. I can arrange protection for you elsewhere. A new identity if necessary. Stop. Sophia put her hand on his lips. Vincent, do you really think I'm going to run away now? After everything that's happened? I hope you're smart enough to consider it. Sophia smiled, and for the first time that night, it was a genuine smile. Then you clearly don't know me very well yet. She approached him, her hands finding his face. Vincent Torino, I don't know what the future holds for us. I don't know if we'll survive this war that other people started, but I know one thing. I'm not going anywhere. Vincent studied her for a long moment, searching for signs of doubt or fear. When he found none, he kissed her. A deep, desperate kiss, full of unspoken promises and fears. When they separated, both were breathing heavily. Sophia, Vincent whispered, I love you. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with weight and meaning. Sophia felt tears sting her eyes. I love you too, she whispered back. Vincent held her as if she might disappear, and Sophia allowed herself to feel for a moment that maybe they could overcome anything together. But outside the mansion, in a car parked in the shadows, Isabella Rossi lowered her binoculars and smiled coldly. Phase 2 complete, she said into the phone. They're emotionally committed now. Time for phase 3. Are you sure this will work? Came Marcus Benedetto's voice from the other end of the line. I'm sure. Vincent Torino may be ruthless in business, but when it comes to her, he has a weak spot, and weak spots can be exploited. Isabella hung up and made another call. It's Isabella. Yes, I want you to do it tomorrow, and make sure it looks like an accident. The war for Vincent Torino's heart was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning, and Sofia Martinez was about to discover that some people would literally do anything to get what they wanted, including kill for it. As Vincent and Sofia embraced in the office, neither knew their lives were about to change forever. The love they had found in each other would be tested in ways they couldn't even imagine. But for now, in this moment, they had each other. And sometimes, when the whole world seems to be against you, that's all that matters. The storm was approaching, but they would face it together. The April sun shone softly over the Torino mansion gardens, creating a striking contrast with the stormy October night that had changed everything. Sophia was kneeling among the rose bushes, the same ones she had improvised about on that fateful night, but now she really knew how to care for them. Her hands, once calloused only from domestic work, now showed the marks of someone who had learned the art of gardening. I still can't believe you managed to make these roses bloom in winter, said Vincent, approaching from behind and wrapping her in his arms. Sophia leaned against his chest, feeling the security his presence always brought her. You said true beauty requires personal care. I discovered that applies to more than just roses. Vincent kissed the top of her head, breathing in the jasmine scent that always accompanied her. Much had changed in the last 6 months. The war that Isabella and Marcus Benedetto had tried to start ended more quickly than anyone expected, mainly because they underestimated the loyalty Vincent had built over the years and the strength of his determination when it came to protecting those he loved. Marcus Benedetto was now serving a 15-year sentence for extortion and attempted murder, crimes that a federal investigation, mysteriously well-informed, had discovered in his business dealings. Isabella Rossi had lost several important contracts in Hollywood after certain information about her negotiation tactics leaked to the press. Scarlett Montgomery had quietly moved to New York, and Catherine Wells had decided that Los Angeles was no longer suitable for her investments. Tony said the last of Benedetto's men left the city yesterday. Vincent murmured against her hair. And what does that mean? It means we can finally live our lives without looking over our shoulders every second. Sophia turned in his arms, studying his face. The tension lines that had marked his features during the months of conflict had finally disappeared. He looked younger, lighter, more like the man she had glimpsed that first night in the garden. "Vincent, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you regret it? Everything that happened? All the complications I brought to your life?" Vincent stopped what he was doing and looked at her seriously. "Sophia Martinez, do you want to know what I regret?" She nodded, suddenly nervous. "I regret taking 2 years to kiss you. I regret wasting so much time pretending I didn't feel what I felt. I regret not protecting you better from the beginning." He held her face in his hands. "But getting involved with you, fighting for you, choosing you over everything and everyone, I'll never regret that." Sophia felt tears sting her eyes, even though it almost cost everything. "Sophia, before you, I had everything and had nothing. I had power, money, respect, but no real purpose. I didn't have someone who made me want to be a better man." Vincent kissed her forehead softly. "You didn't almost cost everything. You gave me everything." They stood in silence for a moment, embraced among the roses Sophia had learned to cultivate. The garden around them was more beautiful than ever. She had spent the last months transforming it, adding her own ideas to the formal designs that existed before. "Mrs. Benedetti said you have a surprise for me," Sophia said, breaking the silence. Vincent smiled, that genuine smile she had learned to love. "Maybe." "Vincent Torino, you know I hate surprises. You'll like this one." He took her hand. "Come with me." They walked through the mansion, passing through corridors Sophia now knew as her own home. She had officially moved in 3 months ago. After Vincent insisted it made no sense for her to keep the apartment when she spent every night at the mansion anyway. Vincent led her to his office, but when he opened the door, Sophia saw it had been completely reorganized. Where before, there had been only his solid mahogany desk, now there were 2 desks, a smaller, more delicate one, positioned near the window overlooking the gardens. "Vincent, what is this?" "Your office," he said simply. "I thought it was time you had your own space here." Sophia looked around, noticing the details. The smaller desk had drawers full of gardening and landscape design materials. There were books on horticulture, plant catalogs, and even some sketches she had made of the gardens. "You kept my drawings." "I kept everything, every idea you had, every suggestion you made." Vincent approached her. "Sophia, you transformed this house into a home. You transformed my life into something worth living. I thought it was time for that to be officially recognized." Sophia turned to him, confused. "Officially?" Vincent smiled and knelt before her, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Sophia felt her heart stop. "Sophia Martinez," he began, his voice slightly trembling. "6 months ago, you entered my life as an employee, but you became my partner, my confidant, my best friend, and the love of my life." Sophia covered her mouth with her hands, tears already streaming down her face. "You taught me that real strength doesn't come from power or fear, but from having someone worth protecting. You showed me that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's courage." Vincent opened the box, revealing a simple but stunning diamond ring. "Will you marry me?" Sophia looked at the man kneeling before her, the same man who had faced a war for her, who had chosen love over convenience, who had seen value in her when the rest of the world saw her as invisible. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, I want to marry you." Vincent slipped the ring onto her finger with trembling hands, then stood up and kissed her as if it were the first time. When they separated, both were crying and laughing at the same time. "I love you, Sophia Torino," Vincent said, testing how the name sounded. "I love you too," she replied, admiring how the ring sparkled on her hand. Outside the office, they could hear applause. Vincent laughed and opened the door, revealing Mrs. Benedetti, Tony, Maria, Carlos, and the entire mansion staff gathered in the corridor. "Were you all listening?" Vincent asked, but he was smiling. "Please, boss," Tony said. "Did you really think you could keep this a secret? We've been planning this for weeks." Mrs. Benedetti approached Sophia, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Welcome officially to the family, dear." Sophia hugged the housekeeper who had become like a mother to her. "Thank you for taking care of me." "Thank you for taking care of him," Mrs. Benedetti replied, looking at Vincent with maternal affection. The ceremony was held in the mansion gardens, among the roses Sophia had cultivated. It was an intimate event, only close family and true friends. Vincent's family had flown in from Italy, and to Sophia's surprise, they welcomed her with open arms. Her own family had come from Mexico, her parents still somewhat intimidated by the opulence, but radiant with happiness for their daughter. Sophia wore a simple but elegant dress, specially designed for her by a stylist Vincent had hired. It wasn't the most expensive or elaborate dress ever worn at a wedding in Los Angeles, but it was perfect for her. When Vincent saw her walking down the improvised aisle between the roses, escorted by her father, he felt as if he were seeing an angel. There weren't 100 women competing for his attention this time. There was only one, and she had chosen him as much as he had chosen her. "Who gives this woman in marriage?" asked the priest. "Her mother and I," Sophia's father replied in careful English, kissing his daughter's cheek before placing her hand in Vincent's. The vows were simple but profound. Vincent promised to protect her, honor her, and love her every day of his life. Sophia promised to stand by his side through any storm, to be his partner in all things, and to always remind him that real strength comes from love. When the priest declared them husband and wife, the kiss they shared was witnessed not only by the guests, but by the roses Sophia had planted, by the gardens she had transformed, and by the house they had made a home together. 1 year later, Sophia was standing on the master bedroom balcony, watching Vincent play with their 6-month-old daughter in the garden below. Isabella Torino, named after Vincent's grandmother, not the woman who had tried to destroy them, was a perfect blend of both parents, with her father's dark eyes and her mother's radiant smile. Life had settled into a happy routine. Vincent had gradually transferred many of his more questionable businesses to trusted associates, focusing on legitimate investments and philanthropy. Sophia had started a landscape design company that quickly became one of the most sought after in Los Angeles. They still faced challenges. There would always be people who questioned their union, who saw Sophia as an opportunist, or Vincent as a man who had lowered himself, but they had learned that others' opinions mattered much less than the truth they shared. "Penny for your thoughts?" Vincent appeared behind her, wrapping her in his arms as they watched their daughter sleeping in the stroller. "Just thinking about how life can change," Sophia replied, leaning against him. 2 years ago, I was an invisible maid. Now I'm a wife, mother, businesswoman, and the most important woman in my life," Vincent added, kissing her neck. Sophia turned in his arms. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like if that night had been different? If you had chosen one of those 100 women?" Vincent considered the question seriously. "No, because I know it wouldn't have been real. It would have been a business partnership disguised as marriage. Convenient, perhaps, but empty. And this? This is real. This is true love. This is a life worth living." Sophia smiled, touching the face of the man who had completely changed her life. "I love you, Vincent Torino. I love you, Sophia Torino." As the sun set over Los Angeles, painting the sky in golden and pink hues, Vincent and Sophia remained embraced on the balcony, watching their daughter sleep peacefully. They had faced a war for the right to love each other, had overcome differences in class and culture, had proven that true love could conquer even the most impossible obstacles. The story that had begun with 100 women competing for one man's heart had ended with 2 people who had found something much more valuable than power or status. They had found a love worth any fight. And in the roses that bloomed eternally in the gardens below, there was a lesson Sophia had learned and now taught her daughter. With care, patience, and true love, even the most delicate things can flourish and thrive, no matter how impossible it may seem at the beginning.